Max speaking right now for the Court of Consciousness system. Honestly, one of my least favorite things about having dissociative identity disorder has nothing to do with being plural or the connection between it and PTSD or how hard and harshly we had to fight to heal our persecutor alters and to heal the alters who we had who were self-destructive. One of the hardest parts about having D.I.D is actually just how literally pretty much nobody actually understands what D.I.D is, and all of the popular media representation on it, almost exclusively, like all the pop content or like characters in media with plurality, with dissociative identity disorder, are portrayed wholly and completely inaccurately and are almost always like these murderous, violent, rampaging lunatics. And it's incredibly disheartening to see that when you are living with dissociative identity disorder, that is what people think you are, especially when we literally, it's a trauma-based disorder. Like people with DID have it because they were abused in some way as a young child. And in order to survive in an otherwise unsurvivable environment, their mind made more minds to protect the life, to keep living in extremely painful environments. And so to be compared to like these murderous monsters in media and like that being the primary like representation that other people see us as is incredibly sad. And it also shows just a level of victim blaming mentality and how people are afraid of us. They're afraid of people with plurality when we literally have plurality because we were abused. So like that is there are systems who don't see it that way, and there are people who don't see their sense of plurality as tied to childhood abuse. But for our system specifically, being a dissociative identity disorder system, we do see it as connected to our childhood trauma directly and to our complex post-traumatic stress disorder from 22 years of narcissistic abuse, among many other things. And just the fact that so many characters who have plurality are just presented in this extremely offensive, stereotypical way is really hard. It's really hard, I would say, for anyone with plurality to see that and to see that that is how neurotypical people think of us, is that they just think we're these violent, monstrous lunatics who live underground or something, and like that, you know, like the characters, it's never accurate. It is literally almost, I don't think I've ever seen a portrayal that was accurate to except if it was by another like artist who has DID. And that is the main problem, is like people, they already treat us as animals just like off the get-go. That's how we get it. And then when we have it, they further dehumanize us through the media. And I hope that within the next 10 to 20 years, maybe there could be media or like people, you know, characters who are not portrayed like that. And it's very offensive and upsetting. Part of why I think a lot of my DID alters present as like angels and demons and different things to me, because system members can present as anything because they're mental people. They're not bound by the same rules because they take whatever form the system gives them. It's not a choice, however they look. It's just essentially chosen by the brain for them. And most of our alters, a lot of them present as like spiritual beings is how they present to us, which, you know, that's part of why it's kind of confusing because we were literally raised primarily atheist for most of our life. So living with alters who very intentionally and very specifically all present extremely spiritually has definitely been difficult for us, and is a part of why we're not an atheist anymore as well, because if a part of your brain is consistently presenting itself to you in a certain way, well, I mean, it kind of can't be. But yeah, like, I think part of the reason that my alters appear that way to me is because I feel like that is one of the only non, I guess, completely awful representations of plurality that is even commonly known. Like, the idea of like people who are like sort of possessed or demon possessed or angel possessed is one of the very few examples of plurality that doesn't exclusively paint people as like these violent murderous monsters. And even in those cases it's sort of rare, but part of the idea why I think my altars present that way to me is because our trauma, a lot of it has to do with feeling invisible. A lot of it has to do with the kinds of abuse we went through, which was a lot of neglect, which was a lot of our needs on a fundamental level not being respected, not being acknowledged. And I feel like that is part of why a lot of my altars present themselves as demonic angels or different things, is because of the kind of abuse we went through and them identifying themselves with different characters in mythology. A lot of my altars absolutely believe that they are angels and that they are demons and have like names and different things that are like from mythology, and that's pretty hard to live with. But we respect them and we believe in them because we have to live with them, and they switch over all the time. But I think that a part of why maybe they are that way is because the symbolism and like the form of abuse we went through to protect our life, to protect and keep living, it made sense at a certain point for them to take on those forms to better protect us and keep living. And I really hope that in the future, plurality will not be treated as us all being monsters, because we're not. We're really not. The real monsters are humans. The real monsters are the adults who give little children D.I.D and complex post-traumatic stress disorder before they're even old enough to like formulate a concept of self. And those are the real monsters, not people living with a condition outside of their control.